This is a 6-pound rack of beef plate short ribs. It's the first time I've ever tried to barbecue these, so I'm going to document the process a little bit. These are the dino ribs, the Fred Flintstone ribs, and the difference between these and back ribs is that the meat resides on the top of the bone instead of between the bones. Okay, now that we have this baby unwrapped, you can see it's got a little bit of silver skin and fat on the top, and I'm going to remove all that. There's a membrane on the bottom as well, and if I was doing pork ribs I would remove that, but in this case I know it's best not to remove this membrane, otherwise the meat may fall right off those bones, because the meat, as you can see how thick the meat is, it's going to actually retract this way from the bone, and it's going to kind of puff up and become very thick as the cook proceeds. So here we go with the trimming. Okay, now as you can see, we got most of that silver skin and fat off the top of the surface. And now the next step is something called dry brining. And this is where you just sprinkle a little bit of kosher salt over all surfaces of the meat. The bottom you don't have to worry about, but sides and top. And leave it set overnight. That will allow the salt to penetrate the meat and flavor it. Don't forget to get your sides as well. One of the reasons to dry brine is that salt is pretty much the only substance that's going to actually penetrate into the meat. Your rubs are not going to penetrate in there, they're going to remain on the surface. So by doing this step, you add a lot of flavor, and you can then liberally spread your non-salted rub as much as you want. Good morning, sports fans. Well, as you can see, the beef is out of the refrigerator where it's been resting overnight. And as we take the foil off, you'll see that there's no sign of any of that salt that I put on there last night. It's all been drawn into the meat. The meat has gotten slightly darker. So our next step is to slather and put our rub on. For the slather, I'm going to use a mixture of a little bit of water and a little bit of Dijon mustard. That'll just help the rub to stick. And for the rub, I'm going to use Meathead Goldwyn's Big Bad Beef Rub, which is a great all-purpose rub for beef brisket like this, ribs like this, which can be found at AmazingRibs.com. Okay, with the rub, we're going to look to cover pretty liberally the surface of the meat and also the sides of the meat. Make sure you don't skip your sides. We're wanting to cook these ribs at about 275 for probably 5 to 6 hours. Depends on the wind and a lot of other factors, but I've got this wireless probe inside the grill that shows me that we're climbing above 174 now, on our way to 275, and when our grill is preheated, I will go ahead and put the ribs in. So the wood I'm going to use today is a mixture. I've got a little bit of maple left. I'm going to use all of that to begin the smoke, and then to finish the smoke, we'll be switching over to applewood. Ordinarily, it's this kind of food in Texas, you use post oak, but I don't have any post oak, so I'm going to use what I got. Okay, I've got 2 water pans set up in here. That's going to keep some moisture rolling around because smoke adheres better in a moist environment. Right in there. Here's our temperature probe at the side there. Close it up. We'll come back to temp, and we'll start putting some wood on it. A word or two about this monster. This is a propane smoker which uses wood chips, and this is not the best or most ideal type of setup. What you really want is to use just wood or lump charcoal with chunks of wood on a real fire. And so you trade off a little bit of that really deep smoky flavor for the sake of convenience and ease of use. But it's what I got. It costs a couple $100 and does the job. Okay, we're going to go for our first addition of wood. So this drawer slides out, and in here it has a compartment, and this is where you put your wood chips. A few ounces of wood chips in there. And that's it. Those are going to start to smolder. You don't need to soak them or anything. Slide them right in there. They're going to start to go to town. Okay, that's what we like to see. We're getting some nice smoke coming out of there. We're pretty much right at that 275-ish range that we want to be at. Okay, these babies have been in there for about 7 hours now. Let's see where we are. All I've done is open the thing to spritz. Man, oh man, oh man. Fred Flintstone, eat your heart out. This is what we were looking for, the pullback of the meat from the bone, the swelling of the meat, the nice dark bark going on. Okay, we are at the 7-hour and 45-minute mark, and these babies are like butter. They're done. So the next step is we're going to wrap them in a double thickness of butcher paper. I'm going to put them in a cooler for an hour or two just to rest. That's what I'm talking about. Look at that smoke ring. Look at how juicy it is. That's what we're looking for. Let's eat. Yabba dabba doo.